Dr. Anthony Davis, Milk SA's veterinary researcher, joins us now to talk about two research projects he's currently involved in, and that is Sporidesmin toxicity and foot and mouth disease. Anthony, what exactly is Sporidesmin toxicity in dairy cattle?
Lisa, thank you. It's a silly word. It's Sporidesmin toxicity, and Sporidesmin is a fungal metabolite of a fungus called Pseudophytomyces chartarum, just so that we can get all those horrible words out the way. So if I can simplify it, there is a fungus that produces a toxin in mainly ryegrass, and that affects dairy cows. So it affects their livers. So potentially if it affects a cow's liver, I mean, a dairy cow is a very busy creature when it comes to the liver. They metabolically extremely important organ. So there will be some production loss. There will be some impact on that animal. And then secondary to that, you get skin problems. And that's usually what the farmers see. They see that there's skin crusting. It's almost like sunburn. And that's usually when they alerted that there is an issue. And we have seen this problem in the Eastern Cape before for many years, but it's just been the odd cow that's had this problem. Work done in New Zealand and Australia, they've had it for more than 120 years. And they started to realize, but because it hits the liver first, you must have some sort of production loss. And that has been shown there. So we thought, okay, if we're seeing the skin lesions here, then there must also be the same level of production loss in our dairy cattle. So what we did is there was one specific farm where I saw the condition, or I suspected it strongly, and I actually collected grass samples and I found the spores in the grass. And then we started taking it further. I started measuring the liver enzymes, and we realized, okay, these cattle really have this problem. So from there, I started looking around on other farms to see if maybe there wasn't similar problems there. So it started off in the Oyster Bay area, and then we started looking, or I started looking at Tsitsikamma because we know it's a problem there. Found it there too. And then slowly but surely, we thought it would probably be more on the coast because it's associated with high humidity and high temperature. The bottom line is eventually, by the end of 2 years, I found that it was as far as Stutterheim, in Cookhouse, in Tsitsikamma, and certainly further inland as well. So it's fairly widespread. And then last year, for the first time, because we launched what we call a spore count service, where farmers send me grass and we check through it, we had cases from the Western Cape as well. So the Western Cape is also affected. And associated with that, very severe clinical signs in those cattle. So it seems to be a significant problem, especially along the coast where there's high humidity and high temperatures.
How did you approach the research, and what are the next steps?
Okay, so the first step was really to prove that this is actually a problem. So what that meant was I had to collect, we set up 3 projects. The one was to collect samples from cattle during peak Sporidesmin toxicity season. So usually it starts December, and then you've got very high levels of toxin by, say, in February, March, or even beginning in February. Let's just say in February. So we plan to collect blood samples then from 4 or 5 different farms in the area. So that was the first step, was just to see what happens to the blood enzyme levels, for example, the liver enzymes and all those various different ones. Then the other part was to just confirm that actually we weren't just clutching onto straws here, that this was in fact a real thing. And we went to we had abattoir samples that were coming into a specific abattoir, or 2 or 3 abattoirs actually, in the Humansdorp area. So I collected liver samples from them, and we studied those histologically for 2 reasons. The one reason was to confirm that we could actually find the histological lesion, because that's the only way you can definitively diagnose it. And also so that we could see if there were other patterns in the histology that we could pick up. So the cellular changes that we would expect. So that was an important part of that. So we're busy with that one still. The clinical chemistry definitely showed that there were enzymes that went up. So there was a reaction from the cows, even though you didn't always see the skin symptoms. But what was interesting is the typical skin symptoms that normally one sees, which is like severe sunburn. In many cows, very subtle skin symptoms were seen. And these were very definitely associated with the liver. So the 2 we could put together. So, okay, so you asked me what you're going to do about it. The main thing to do is to know when you can intervene. You can, if you pick up when that spore count goes above 20,000, then you can add zinc oxide to the ration. And that has been shown to actually prevent the severe symptoms of facial eczema. We think, well, that's the other name for it, facial eczema. We think that what happens is that it breaks down that sporidesmin molecule in the gut, so in the rumen. So that is what we suspect, and that actually reduces the clinical effects that we see in the cattle, which is very useful. So we launched the spore count service 2 years ago, and through Milk SA, and we investigated first just the quite a broad sweep of the Eastern Province, and then we focused more on the Tsitsikamma area, and from Thornhill to Tsitsikamma last year. And then this year, we're going to be trying to go a bit further afield to the Western Cape as well, and see if we can see what's going on there. So we're trying to keep record of what's going on, but also to provide a service to the farmers so that they know when to put that zinc oxide into their ration to prevent the losses that they would have if they didn't. So that's the intervention that we have at this moment.
Now, another project is on FMD, and more particularly milk collected from FMD and FMD vaccinated farms. What are the concerns, and would you like to share any other comments about this?
Okay, so what happens when a farm is foot and mouth disease positive? The milk is completely safe for human consumption, so there's no issue there. The problem with the milk, though, is that potentially, and that has been found in the past, potentially that milk can still contain virus. So it has to be processed in a specific way so that it doesn't get back into the food chain, that it's not fed to pigs or other cattle or something. So for that reason, farmers have to, or processors have to double pasteurize or UHT process that milk, and they're not allowed to export it. And that has to be in place for a whole year. And that has enormous economic consequences. So part of this project, the goal of this project is to assess what is the actual viral load in that milk. Is it always a problem? Is it going to be a high viral load for that entire year? Or will there be a point where it looks like there's not enough virus to actually cause a problem? So that's the first goal of that, is to see if we can't look at enough evidence-based research to challenge those regulations and say, but look, perhaps it's not as severe as we think. But anyway, that's anybody's guess. That's why we need to do the work. And the second part is we can then develop a surveillance tool, because bulk tank milk, potentially one cow that's infected, one can pick up in 20,000 liters of milk, between 10 and 20,000 liters of milk. So it's a very cost-effective way to survey for foot and mouth disease in a free area. So that's the second part that could be useful.
Do you have a deadline for the research?
Lisa, it's going to take some time. It is going to take a while because we first need to get the diagnostics done and we need to validate the tests. So I can't even say how many years it's going to take, but we're talking about years here. What I can say, though, is as a country, we need to aim for foot and mouth disease free status. We have to get to a point where it's not going to be possible in all the provinces, but the provinces that are free at the moment must do everything in their power to stay free. And that's really the bottom line.
And that is Dr. Anthony Davis from Milk SA talking to us about two projects he's currently involved in for Milk SA: research on Sporidesmin toxicity in dairy cattle as well as FMD.